is Ed Baig with USA Today. You know, when Microsoft recently unveiled the new Surface Pro 3 tablet, it's really a hybrid between the tablet and the laptop, they went after Apple pretty hard. Now, you would expect that when you bring out a new tablet because everybody sort of has the iPad in the crosshairs. But they more directly went after Apple's popular MacBook Air notebook. So let's see how the two compare. Let's talk design. Now the MacBook Air, of course, is the conventional laptop, if you will. It's thin, it's light, it's good looking, comes in two sizes. There's a 13.3-inch version like this one here. There's also an 11.6-inch version. It has the full complement of ports, and it has a front-facing camera that you can use for video conferencing. Surface, on the other hand, is sometimes a laptop, but it's also sometimes a tablet. And it has two cameras, front and rear. It's also thin and light. In fact, it's lighter than the MacBook Air, certainly lighter when you're not attaching the optional keyboard to it. But even when the keyboard is there, they're about the same weight as the smaller MacBook Air and lighter than the larger MacBook Air. Now let's talk about the keyboard. The keyboard on the MacBook Air is as good as you'll find out there. It's a backlit keys. In my experience typing with this, it's a pleasure to type on. It's just really first class, as is the trackpad that is below the keyboard. That is used, of course, for moving the cursor on the screen, for gesturing on the screen. It's also best in class. Now the keyboard on the Surface Pro 3 is actually an optional keyboard. I wish it was included. If you're going to call this a laptop, well, you're going to want to have an integrated keyboard, which they don't have here. Now that having been said, this is a vast improvement of the earlier keyboards that Microsoft produced for earlier Surface models. It snaps on magnetically. The keys are now backlit, just like the MacBook Air. There's better quote-unquote travel when you type with your fingers. It feels like a real keyboard. It's as good as the MacBook Air keyboard. It's not, but it's very good just the same. And I also want to point out that the trackpad on this new accessory is also very good, vastly improved over the prior version. Now, the other thing that you have to keep in mind when you're using the optional keyboard here is that it works in tandem with the newly designed kickstand on the back of the Surface Pro 3, which, unlike prior models, you can adjust to any angle whatsoever. That's a big deal because it means you can type on your lap. You can put it down almost like a canvas, as if you're producing some artwork. You could prop it up on a desk to watch a movie, say. It's an excellent keyboard kickstand combination. Works really well. I just wish this was an integrated keyboard. Now, as a Windows 8 machine, the Surface Pro 3 actually has a feature that the MacBook Air doesn't. That's notably a touchscreen display. That means you can actually touch the display directly with your fingers to manipulate gestures, to move things around on the screen, and to draw with it. And speaking of drawing, you can actually do it with this pressure-sensitive pen, which actually comes with the Surface Pro 3. Does a pretty good job of mimicking the feel of writing on real paper. It's not the same thing, it's not quite as natural, but they do a really good job with it. And there's a nice feature here where if you press the button on the top of the display, it automatically launches the OneNote note-taking program within Windows. Now, touch is a big deal for Apple too, but in a very different way. Of course, you can manipulate the screen directly when you're talking about an iPad, but in terms of the MacBook Air, all the touch gesturing you're doing is on that trackpad where you're moving around the cursor, moving things on the screen. Now let's talk software. If you're looking at these as laptop versus laptop, we have the age-old battle. Mac operating system, notably here OS X Mavericks, the latest version of the Mac operating system, versus Windows. In this case, Windows 8.1 Pro, the latest version of Windows. Now, this is also, as I mentioned, a tablet, and that means it could also run apps designed for the tablet. Now, there are far fewer of those than there are, of course, for Apple's tablet, the iPad, and that has a lot to say about the operating systems themselves. Apple keeps the operating system for the iPad and the Mac separate. We have OS X, we have iOS. Windows 8.1 is more of a hybrid, an operating system, some would say schizophrenic, that's designed for both tablet and for the traditional PC desktop. Now, if you prefer the Mac, of course, you're going to certainly prefer the MacBook Air. If you prefer Windows, that's the way to go. And this will run all your Windows software, all your PC software, everything from Photoshop to Quicken to Microsoft's own Office suite, of course. Oh, and by the way, iTunes, which of course works in both places. Now, as with most big purchases, of course, it may come down to price, to your budget. And when you're thinking about that, think about entry-level prices. Now, for the MacBook Air, you're paying $899. That's for the 11-inch version. You'll pay $100 more for the larger 13-inch version. On the Surface side, the Microsoft side, you're starting at $799. So you may think right away, oh, well, I'm getting a pretty good deal here. But almost all of you are going to want to add the optional keyboard, and that piles on another $130 to the price. So now you're in the $930 range or so, and that's actually more expensive than the entry-level MacBook Air. Now, a few other things to keep in mind. Storage. With the entry-level Microsoft machine, you're getting 64 gigabytes of storage. On the MacBook, you're getting double that, 128 gigabytes. Now, yeah, there's online storage options. There are ways to expand with memory cards, but basically you are doubling the storage on the Apple machine versus the Microsoft machine. Now, again, we can take this, there's a long list of, but they have this, they have that. Here we have a touchscreen, here we have a pen, here we have a more traditional laptop with a better built-in keyboard. So bottom line, you've got some choices to make. These are both good-looking machines, light machines, fine machines, and depending upon your needs, I don't think you can make the wrong choice. For USA Today, I'm Baig, and I'll catch you next time.